Hi, I am Janice and thank you for joining me. Today I am going to be going over my favorite books that I've read in 2022. And if you have read any of these, let me know if you have and what you thought in the comments. I would love to know. So, first book that I have read this year, it was actually the first one that I read, I really enjoyed, was Station 11. Yeah, so this was written back in 2014. But in this book, there is a global pandemic that happens and wipes out something like 99% of the entire population. And I'm not normally drawn to this kind of story, I think, but I really enjoyed this. I thought it was very good. And I know it might sound similar to The Stand, if you read The Stand or watched it, because there's a movie. It is very different from The Stand, and it takes place through a certain character's eyes in the beginning and the events of his life. I don't want to give too much away, but leading up to the pandemic, and then it's not immediately the events following the pandemic, but it then picks up 20 years after, and it's where humanity is 20 years after a pandemic, and so it's really interesting. So then I read Confessions of a Shopaholic, which is kind of just heartwarming. I think it's important to note with a lot of financial advice, because obviously this is about a character who gets herself into a lot of credit card debt through shopping and of course, she's a columnist who writes articles about giving financial advice. I just think it's really interesting how, with a lot of financial advice, the focus is on budgeting and how to save money. And I think that's all very important. But I think we minimize, or sometimes it's not even talked about at all, what is probably the more important side of this equation. And it happens in here. She starts to solve her problems in this book, her financial problems, by making more money. And I've seen that as well one other time, where they were giving financial advice to a couple, was that you need to increase the income. It's not just about budgeting and saving your money and being really careful about where you spend. And I do think that that is important, but I also wish we would talk about the other side of the equation more when we talked about finance, and maybe it was just that this kind of thing wasn't talked about a lot, and I think it should be. I think we should talk about money more. So that's what I got from that. And then, so I finally got around to reading this as well. Cannot believe I've never read it. So A Little Princess. I really enjoyed the movie growing up, but I had never read the book, and I think I enjoyed the book even more than the movie. It's really nice to read about INFP characters, first of all. And yes, it's not perfect, I will say, but I really enjoyed it, and I'm glad that I finally got around to reading it. I know it's a kid's book, but I really wish I would have read it when I was younger. So now I have, and I'm glad that I did. So I read a few sequels this year, and this is the sequel you can see on here to Chocolate, which I loved so much. The first one was so good. And this one is magical and delightful and decadent as well. Now, this one, I heard about the author before I came across any of her books, but she was a pioneering African American science fiction author and just an amazing woman. and so I really wanted to check out her books. And so this is the first one I picked up. And this one is about a character who is called back through time to help her ancestor who lives on a plantation. So, of course, it is not a great situation for her. So she has to navigate that world and then getting back to her own time. And I thought it was really good. And there's a series on Hulu I just saw, so we're going to have to watch that as well. Very intense, but very good. And all of these I recommend, but I definitely want to read more of Octavia Butler for sure. Okay, and this one is a comfort story, The House by the Cerulean Sea. And it is about an orphanage full of unusual children. So, but there's magic, and it's a love story, and it's just cute. It's so cute. It should give you a lot of warm fuzzies. So this is a comfort story, and I recommend this one if you need a bit of comfort. Okay, and the last two are sequels as well. So I read Redemptor, which is the sequel to Raybearer. So, and this is a fantasy, and I can say that I have never read anything like this series, and I think this is a wonderful and unique series. But anyway, so if you enjoy fantasy, it's finally got around to reading another sequel. This is the sequel. This is Sorceress, the sequel to Witch Child. The first one, I think, is a teenager, and I can't believe I didn't get around to reading this one. If you liked Witch Child, you will enjoy this one as well. So that is my list of books. I hope I read any of them. What are your favorites that you've read? I always love book recommendations as well. I enjoy fiction. I don't mind young adult or even kids books, because they're still good stories, you know? Just because they're kids books doesn't mean they're not enjoyable or well written. So, like I said, thank you for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye!